beam detectors and firefighting system like fire extinguisher and sprinkler system. PA system and routers are also installed in a hall. In case of any emergency, don't be panic, follow the instruction made on a public address system. Our team is well trained, they will guide you during an emergency. For any medical emergency, the ambulance is on standby at the premises. First aid, wheelchair and AED is available at the hotel. For the restrooms, you can move out of the hall and take a right turn. Hotel has a designated smoking zone at the banquet entrance. So today we are not conducting any planned mock drill. So on behalf of our hotel management, we wish you all a successful conference and a wonderful experience at Fairmont, Mumbai. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, I thought we would be slightly more charged up. We're looking at transforming everything. So let's first transform our voices here. Good morning, everyone. Believe me, whatever energy you throw in, we will throw it back at you at this event. I'm Indu Sharma, the Vice President for Communications for Siemens Limited, and I'll be your host for the day. I'm welcoming you to the 6th edition of Transform the Siemens Innovation Day, and I thank all of you for joining me here and everybody who's joining us on the webcast. Thanks a lot for being here, listening to us. So from the last time when we had actually interacted and we came to you, there's a lot that has actually changed. The world has moved on, the industries have become complex, the businesses need so much more. AI, which was a textbook word at some point in time, has become a reality for the businesses. And now you'll see what is it that the role that the Siemens plays. And we have a packed agenda for all of you. We have a lot of speakers throughout the day. You must have already seen some bit of exhibits. So it's going to be a very interesting day with a lot of thoughtful insights coming your way. We will start with the keynote address by our CTO, Dr. Koerte, joined by two of our customers from NVIDIA, the partner, and from the Adverb Technologies. Followed by that, we will also have some expert speak sessions, first by Dr. Dirk Diascaro, and then we will have Dr. Kolia and our own Robert Deman speaking about the technologies of future. We will be touching upon industrial AI, industrial simulation. We will be touching upon certain verticals, how the manufacturing of future is, AI factories of the future are. You definitely are going to have a blast throughout the day with the kind of energizing conversations that you'll have. So once again, I welcome you all, and to take the agenda further, I invite Mr. Sunil Mathur onto the stage, the MD and CEO for Siemens Limited, to start the conversations. Can we have a round of applause, please?
So, good morning everyone from my side as well, and a very warm welcome to the 6th Innovation Day, Transform. You know, when we started this program about 6 years ago, we weren't really sure how this would develop. And we were talking about manufacturing, we were talking about infrastructure, and we were talking about mobility, and the fact that India will need to move up on the scale if we have to achieve the aims that the government has laid out for this country. Technology was a critical component at that point in time, but in the last 6 years, a lot has changed. And I think it is fair to say, while we always spoke about a VUCA world, the last couple of years have made that very, very real. And when we are talking about geopolitics and the challenges that there are currently around the geopolitical area, we're also looking at economic challenges with trade realignments happening, new partnerships between countries being created. We're talking about weaponization of the critical resources, rare earth minerals, for example. This is now becoming critical, securing the supply chains across the world. And this is something that is not only true about India, but this is really a global trend that is happening. In the last couple of years, the term AI has become much more real. AI has really become real in the industrial manufacturing space, but across the infrastructure as well, and in our day-to-day lives. So effectively, the world has changed at a pace at which it has never changed before in the last 5 or 6 years. Now, when I look at that, and we look at where India is right now, with all the volatility that there is around the world, I think it is fair to say that we are a stable oasis in the rest of the world right now. The last 5 or 6 years have seen a huge jump in the way India has actually developed. There aren't too many countries around the world that have been growing in the last 5 years at 7.5%. When you look at the developments that India has done, primarily first in the area of infrastructure, but also moving into the area of manufacturing. We have, for example, in the last 7 years, electrified 37,000 kilometers of rail network. That is equivalent to the entire network of Germany. We've gone from less than 50 gigawatts of energy, of green energy, renewables, to close to 250 gigawatts of renewables. We are looking at AI and the connectivity reaching a completely different level. We're probably the lowest cost in terms of compute power in the world right now. And a whole lot of these changes are coming in. India, from being a country that always had a promise, that always had a potential, has now been actually starting to deliver on that potential in the last 4 or 5 years. 70% of the buildings that India requires have yet to be built. We are looking at the entire network of the country actually still under construction. And this goes back really to the program of the government under the Viksit Bharat program, where we aspire to be a $30 trillion economy by 2047, which means a growth rate in GDP of 8 to 10% per year. Now, many programs have actually started, and in the past there were a lot of programs that had been announced. So what is different? The difference is the last 5 years the country is actually delivering on these programs. I'd like to touch on 4 growth levers that have been announced as a part of the Viksit Bharat program, and I'll go into a little bit of detail around that as well. If you look at innovation, the reality is today India is spending less than 1% on R&D, on innovation. If we have to be a developed country, innovation will play the central role, will have to play the central role in our growth story. We will need to go from under 1%, 0.6%, to close to 3%, which is the bare minimum that some of the global countries are doing that aspire to be leaders in the area of manufacturing, infrastructure, and so on. Data centers, with the boom in artificial intelligence, we will need to increase the number of data centers and the gigawatts that we have. The government already has a program to grow that from close to 1.5 gigawatts today to over 8 gigawatts in the near future. When you look at the number of airports, 70 new airports have come up in the last 10 years. 70. 50 more are planned in the next 5 to 7 years. And that means we're opening roughly 1 or 2 airports every other week in the country. And this is massive. This is a scale that is massive, that is critical for logistics, critical for moving people across the country. Industrial corridors. We already have 4 industrial corridors. The aim is to increase that to over 10, to make them 11 in the next couple of years. And this is really enabling industry to become much more efficient, ensure that logistics actually works up, but also will provide a huge amount of capex into the system. And when I talk of capex, I talk about manufacturing as well. Today we can argue whether the share of manufacturing is 14, 15, 16 or 17% of GDP, and there are multiple numbers out there. But the reality is the government needs and wants to bring the share of manufacturing from 14, 15% today to close to 25%. Let me put that in perspective. Today we are a $4 trillion economy. 15% of that, for argument's sake, is $600 billion contribution to GDP. If we are going to get to, for argument's sake again, a $6 trillion economy in the next couple of years, short term, I'm not talking 10 years, in the next couple of years to a $6 trillion economy at 25% of GDP, that's $1.5 trillion. Now, $1.5 trillion minus the 650 is a contribution of close to $900 billion to GDP in manufacturing. $900 billion. To do $900 billion of contribution to GDP, you need a capex requirement of at least $1.5 trillion. Now, I don't know too many countries around the world that plan to spend $1.5 trillion in manufacturing. So this is going to be absolutely critical. And if we are supposed to and intend to become, and indeed will need to become to achieve the $30 trillion aspiration over there, manufacturing will play a central role in that. What's interesting is the government has chosen to do all of this in a very sustainable manner. We are already ahead of our COP26 commitments there. We are at 250 gigawatts, close to 300 gigawatts already of renewable energy, with an aim to get to 500 gigawatts, indeed with an aim to get to 700 gigawatts of renewable energy in the next couple of years. What does that mean? It means we will double our generation capacity in the country in the next 5 to 7 years. We will double our transmission capacity in the country in the next 5 to 7 years. What does that mean? That means in the entire distribution network, we are going to have to double, triple that as well, while ensuring stability of the network because of the renewable energy feeding into it. Hydrogen will be another critical factor, and the government has already launched the National Hydrogen Mission over there. So there's a lot of potential coming up in all these areas. And the government is really pulling on all levers. But however, for all of you as organizations, there are multiple levers that all of you have to pull. And these are ranging from you need productivity, while also you get efficiencies and speed, you need flexibility, particularly now in a world which is completely volatile. You're looking at quality as being a given. Customers are no longer paying for quality. They expect it as a given. You want to scale, and you want all of that to be done in a sustainable manner, using artificial intelligence, using technologies that are secure. How do you juggle all of these needs that you have, your customers have, in order to stay ahead of the curve? The only way you can do it is technology. And indeed, there are many technologies out there, and you will hear more about it in the course of the day. You will see it in action here in the country already through the exhibits that you will visit there. But we do have, for manufacturing, the industrial AI technologies, of course. You're looking at digital twins. You're looking at infrastructure with autonomous buildings coming in. You're looking at digital substations, next level grids, etc. But all of these, of course, can only be effective if they work on a platform that is absolutely secure. And these are the kind of technologies that are available today and that you will hear more about in the course of the day today. You will see it on display out there in the exhibition group. You will be able to talk to partners that we are working with to see how we are actually delivering real solutions, not only by ourselves, but in an ecosystem of partners as we expand this ecosystem further as well. But let me start first with our keynote address, and I'm delighted to invite our Chief Technology Officer, Chief Strategy Officer, member of the Managing Board of Siemens AG, to really give an overview of what is happening in the world of technology and what real benefits can actually be provided when you use technology, not only for the big boys, but also for the medium level companies. So it gives me great pleasure to invite Peter Koerte to address the audience here. Peter, over to you.
Thank you, Sunil, and good morning, everyone. Before I start, I want to congratulate you on yesterday's win, of course, against England at the T20. Well done. That's fantastic. I was rooting for you because I was thinking, what would I tell you if you hadn't? But I was somehow convinced that you would actually make it. And our chairman here in India, he told me, you have to wear the blue shirt, because blue means obviously supporting the India team. So, well done. That gets us a little bit into the keynote, because indeed we're going to talk a lot about AI, as Sunil said. And over the past few years, since we've done this, we were talking about digital twins and simulation, then we talk about the industrial metaverse, and here we are, and we're coming all the way to industrial AI, which is going to be the key topic. Now, I also want to say, I asked actually one of those large language models of who's going to win at the World Cup. And actually it told me the following. It said, well, you know what, there's going to be India and New Zealand, that we knew. And they said, well, you got a really, really good, strong squad there, we knew. And then it said, well, the probability of winning is about 50%. So that makes me wonder, all right, that's fair. Then I asked it again, can you be more specific? And then finally I got it to 60-40. So it thinks on Sunday you're going to have a very good day, of course. Now, getting into my presentation, I want to talk about industrial AI and how that really changes the world. And what we are talking about is pretty much about the physical world. So when we talk about of course, mobility, and trains obviously is a very important mode here as a transportation in India. But we also talk about factories, we talk about life sciences, semiconductor plants, and all the way to intelligent infrastructure when we think about electricity grids, but also buildings and all the infrastructure that you need to build pretty much what Sunil was talking about earlier. It's a massive, massive growth opportunity for the next few years, and let me tell you, I overlook all our investments at Siemens around the world, and there's very few places where you find an economy of the size of India growing at 7% of GDP, and right now everybody is expecting that to stay on. So, of course, the future, shall we say, is absolutely looking bright for India to come. Now, we are at a doorstep when it comes to technology. And when it comes down to how AI is going to transform the many sectors that you have, and India is going to gain and contribute the most. So let me talk about, in the next 20 minutes, about three things. Number one, what's happening in this AI revolution in industry. Then I want to move forward and really talk about why I think India has a unique position to actually benefit from industrial AI the most. And then lastly, I think that's a question everybody is excited about and interested in. Where's the potential? So how much actually can I improve my operations? How can I really become more competitive, more resilient, more sustainable in that regard? And these are the three things I want to talk. Now, as we think about it, the number one thing is when we talk about AI, of course, we talk about NVIDIA a lot, and we talk about chips and GPUs, we talk about large language models, but as far as I'm concerned, I talk about data. Because AI without data is nothing, and in the industrial case, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, it's very, very different. So if you think about what you're wearing in your pockets, probably your smartphones, if you think about the home appliances you're having at home, if you think about actually all the new industrial equipment going out there, all of this is going to be connected. And that does mean two things. One, you're going to get much, much more data out of it. And two, you're going to get much more intelligence into what we call the field level. Not sure if you know, but there's more than 20 billion smart devices out there. And of them, they're taking data almost every second, depending on where you sit. So we are thinking about a factory, you can get up to a terabyte of data an hour, which is really significant because we see an explosion of data coming from these 20 billion devices that are out there in the field. And that's good news, because obviously we need that data to feed the AI. The challenging news though is today, 80% of that data is today not used. So the question is, how do you harness this data in order to unlock the value, that treasure trove of really making industry much, much more intelligent and much more effective? So when we think about this at Siemens, we think about what we have to do is we have to combine the real with the digital world. That is, everything you're going to see from Siemens in the future that's being shipped to customers, it's going to be somehow connected. There will be some data coming out of it that's going to give us that intelligence, which we then can combine with other data in order to build digital twins, in order to build simulations, in order to build, of course, representations of the real world, where at any given stage in time, you can actually simulate what's happening, you can take real-time decisions, and then thereby affecting your operations. Let me give you a few examples. Automotive. is a key one, obviously, always spearheading also new innovations when it comes down to latest technologies, as is aerospace. And for example, with Audi, what we've done is we brought intelligence down to the shop floor, where about the spot welding, we now are able, based on cameras, but also on all the voltages that goes into it when the welding process is actually happening. Based on that data, we can detect and identify whether all those welding spots are accurate. What does it mean? As you can reduce significantly the amount of testing and also save a lot of time and money while at the same time improving the quality. And we all do this now, in the meanwhile, down on the industrial edge, and we're providing what we call software-defined automation, where you can actually virtualize all of this on an edge device. So this is where we're thinking in terms of manufacturing, and there's many, many, many more use cases, and you see some of them out there in the exhibition area. Now, as we think about also infrastructure, water, of course, is a key thing for India, as you all know. And one of the biggest issues in water is, if you're that in the industry, if you're a utility, we are up to 60% of losses as we get that water transported to the consumer. 60% losses. And the question is, if water is so precious in many, many areas, how can we actually reduce that water leakages by using technology? And what we've done is we're connecting to all the pumps and sensors that are along the waterways, and in the meanwhile, within the radius of 100 meters, usually, we are able to even detect the tiniest cracks, and thereby cutting water losses by almost half, which is really fantastic, because if you think about it, that's what we need in the end anyway. And then it gets me to something like this. Buildings. We spend 90% of our time inside, in buildings, and about 30% of all the energy consumed today in the world is actually to make us feel comfortable. So climatization and lighting and everything. And so if you think about what the potential that is in order to reduce energy by using technology, where we developed an AI which is called Comfort AI, and essentially think of it as a autopilot that in cruise control that takes a reading every 15 minutes of your system, learns and updates itself, and thereby makes us feel comfortable by cutting energy cost by nearly a third. A third is a lot, by the way, and we think about it, it can be not only done to greenfield environments, but in particular also to brownfield environments, in order to, of course, make buildings more efficient, but also in that regard more sustainable. So 3 great examples that we see are already transforming and changing the world today. Now the question is, where do we want to take it? And what's the difference between industrial AI and the AI that you use in your everyday lives, as I just did for projecting, of course, who's going to win the T20. And the big difference in industrial AI is it needs to be safe, it needs to be secure, it needs to be reliable, it needs to be trustworthy. So if you imagine, and I always ask German engineers actually the fact, that imagine an engineer coming to you and said, Peter, I have this great idea, I'm going to build this large language model, it's going to cost you $500 million per training run, and in the end it's going to give you an answer, and the answer is going to be 70 to 80% correct. Then you say, wow, 70 to 80% correct is not necessarily what I expect from an engineer, because you expect precision of what? 95, 99, whatever percentage. So in industry, we have to rethink of how we deploy AI. Hallucination is definitely a big issue that we have to overcome, so that it really becomes reliable. And we have to explain of how the AI actually derived to its conclusion. And so therefore we have to make it trustworthy and we have to make it secure. So that is something that we are working on to make industrial AI, as I said, secure, reliable, trustworthy, so that we can deploy it in all the different areas. And we need it. We need it because Sunil was talking about it. The world is definitely changing with regards to everything that's happening around us. There's tariffs coming up all the time, new tariffs. trade conflicts in your backyard. So therefore, something has to give us the tools in order to adapt more quickly to a very dynamic and changing environment. And there, the question is, what about India? Because if you think about the global AI race, you got, of course, the United States, then you got China, and then everybody's asking, but where's India? Because India is so strong when it comes down to software development, services for the world. What's the role of India to play in all of this? So we absolutely are convinced that India is going to be a major force in AI. And the question is where? If you take the stack of GPUs, of large language models and applications, we think it's the latter. We think India is going to benefit from it the most by applying AI in the various industries that we're going to see emerging. And the number one statistic that struck me when we prepared the presentation was, there's a statistic out there that would say 80% of the enterprises, Indian enterprises already today, they are using AI solutions of sorts. So that is very impressive when you think about, of course, being open to technology, applying the technology, because today we have a huge gap. The gap is actually, it's not so much that the technology is there, and maybe it's not as precise enough as it should be, but it's an adoption gap. And we believe that culturally also, from everything that you've done, with all the very well-educated workforce that you have, India is going to use AI the most. Now what if we take those numbers that Sunil spoke about, 15%, 16, 17% of GDP today, and it's going to go up to 25%. And what if that 10% of GDP that we're going to invest into, of course, new sectors, or manufacturing sectors, buildings, infrastructure, what if we leapfrog that and we make it AI native? We already build it such that actually it gets us the data, that actually we have those models being embedded in order to make them more intelligent, and that you stand to benefit from that. And we believe there's going to be a lot of applications coming from India for the world in order to make us much more competitive. So I give you one example where our teams from India have developed a fantastic application. It's one of hundreds that we see now emerging almost on a daily or weekly basis. So our team in Bangalore has had a challenge from a customer. It's an oil and gas customer who operates in a desert. It's not unlikely, because sometimes that's where you find that oil. And so you still have to operate all those wells, the heavy machinery, and all the specialist vehicles in very constrained conditions. And so the customer came and they asked us, well, there are always these sandstorms. And with the sandstorms, you have a lot of sand accumulating. It's a major issue, obviously, for operations. Can you help us to solve this problem? And we said, well, Chetan and his team in Bangalore, they said, yes, we can. Because what we can do is actually we can take satellite images, and then we can take those satellite images, analyzing the accumulation of sand at the various infrastructures that they had and they were operating, and then we can actually merge it together with weather forecasting and weather data, and then teach the model actually of what would happen in different weather conditions. And what you can see here on the as numbers is obviously in the meanwhile they are able 7 days ahead to have a 70% accuracy when they think about where a sandstorm is going to hit and where to deploy these resources. They become much more accurate, obviously, the closer they get to this event, and they actually can save 20% of those costs that they usually have. And it's just one of the many applications, let me be clear, that are emerging almost, as I said, daily from India for the world, that we can scale. And I've been told that you can only use it in a sandstorm, or actually in deserts, but you actually can use it for snow and actually a kind of Arctic operation. So let's see how that can be scaled, which is always the key question. So the question is, how now do we take all these great applications and make them available for everyone? And this is where you've been hearing us talking about a lot, actually. 3 years ago when we started it, India was one of the first adopters, was the Siemens Xcelerator. So what is the Siemens Xcelerator? It is a digitally open platform. Think of it as Amazon, which we have obviously in the consumer world, and which is geared towards the industrial world, so that we can make technology available to everyone in a much, much faster way. So what do you find on that platform, on this digitally open platform that we have? You find all the hardware and all the software that it requires. And this is important because it's not just software and it's not just hardware. It's actually software that works with open and IoT connected hardware in order to get you that. And more importantly so, it's not just about Siemens, it really is about whatever use case you're trying to solve. It is curated by industry and by use case in order to address their challenges, such as what we've seen with oil and gas customers when it comes down to sandstorms and that accumulation of sand. And that's where the powerful ecosystem comes into play, and Sunil was talking about this too, and that's why today, as you go through the exhibition area, you will also find 9 of our partners of how they are actually using some of the technologies, how they are building on Siemens Xcelerator in order to make all of this work. So moving forward, the role of Siemens that we want to play and that we are playing in all of this when it comes to industrial AI is where we can connect, as I said, the real world with the digital world. We can bring together the data together with the applications and then all, of course, the competencies that we need to have. And you find many statistics here on there. What I always find most important is the following, that getting data is one thing, but actually the key thing is getting the right data and understanding the domain that you're operating in. And one of the things you're seeing here on the slide is that actually every third machine that's operated in the world is being actually controlled by a Siemens controller, which means that gives us the data in order to infer and to make, of course, those models available in order to address some of those use case challenges when it comes down to quality, productivity, time to market, whatever the challenge you're looking at solving. And maybe one fact that many of you are not aware, Siemens is the #1 company when it comes down to industrial software. We have more than $11 billion of sales in the digital business, which makes us the 16th largest, 16th largest software company in the world. So probably you think of Siemens as these are the people that electrify, and you're absolutely right. This is what we've done the last century, and this we're going to continue to do so, and we bring more digitalization and electrification. Then we moved over to automation, and then we automate the world, and then we digitalize the world. And now, with that digitalization, finally comes the industrial AI all along. Let me say just a few words more about industrial AI, because actually it really helps to understand why this is different. For industrial AI, as I said, you need data. And most of those large language models today, they're being trained on the internet. That does not work in industry. You cannot go on the internet and download production data, design data, engineering data. This does not exist. So the only way how we can build the industrial AI is by doing it together. I tell you, each of you in your operations, in your company, you probably sit on your own data, which is the good news. The bad news is that data that you're sitting on is never going to be enough, and actually building these models that need to be so reliable and so accurate that they actually make a difference. Even Siemens, we sit on about 300 petabytes of data. We have 2 million CAD files, all of this. This is a lot of data, but still not good enough for building something in the industrial world to make those applications work, because they need to be heterogeneous, they need to come from different places. And this is why we have to work in ecosystems, in data alliances, and bring actually that data together to train a model on specific use cases and then deploy it to all of us. So therefore, we can work with all of you. We are serving today 30 different industries, from cement, glass, semiconductor, pharma, life sciences to data centers, where we can provide that data and those solutions to make that work. So nobody can do this alone when it comes to data, but also nobody can do it alone when it comes to technology. And this is why we're also partnering a lot with NVIDIA. And earlier this year at CES, we spoke about how NVIDIA and us are bringing the latest technologies together. This is going to be GPU accelerated and going to make a significant difference in the industrial world. And you're going to see two use cases out there where we talk about something that we call the digital reality viewer, and also about the digital twin composer, where we help you to build this digital world in a much, much faster way that then connects you to the real world in real time so that you can make better predictions. So how does it look like? This is an example, and you're going to see that video also out there. It's a simulation in the end, where we are able now to scale it to an amount of complexity where you can build these ships, ammonia-propelled ships of 7 million parts, where you can actually simulate factories, where we think about how can we build these GPUs in a much, much faster and more efficient way on a daily basis, where we can think about shop floors, how we change them in order to make cut-hour times much faster, and of course for India, in particular important, how can we bring railway simulations also faster time to market. So all of this can be only done if we do this together, and that's why we are really, really happy to also have today two of our key partners there. So please, everyone, welcome with me on stage Vishal, who is the Managing Director of NVIDIA, and Sanjeet, who is the CEO of Artwork Technologies. Welcome, Vishal. Welcome, Sanjeet. Great to have you here, and thank you for joining me here on stage. This is fantastic. And Vishal, maybe I'll start with you. Obviously, we are building a lot of great latest technologies together. What's all this role for you in India? Maybe you can share a few words from your perspective.
I think Sunil set up the stage. He spoke 14, 15, 16. Be whatever number, manufacturing needs to be significant proportion of our GDP. There's no second thinking on that part. And the government is very clear. I think everybody in this room is very clear. Manufacturing has to be that much more important. And that's exactly where Siemens and NVIDIA come together. If we can truly help you scale in software-defined, AI-native factories, you're going to be scaling. Now, why do I make this statement? There are three things that are happening in India simultaneously. First, the number of greenfield projects that are coming up, and at the scale that they need to operate. If they need to operate on that scale, you can actually build true, perfect virtual copy today. And you can build that virtual copy and figure out how to lower your cost. Statistics show anything between 10 to 20%. Stats show your output can go up by 20%. Stats show that you can capture 90% of your mistakes in the virtual copy. Imagine, make in India, world class. Second, what government is doing, PLIs. The momentum of PLI, which is over $20 billion, has already generated 1.2 million jobs. And everybody in this room who's involved with grassroots know how important those 1.2 million jobs are, because that brings prosperity to people. And we haven't ceased there. The third part, the AI flywheel. What the government has done through the public-private partnership is to truly build AI brains here. For sure, it is coming up, it's getting built up, but imagine when that 60 plus million MSMEs will get that AI brain, what does it mean? Combine these three together is industrial AI. I believe India is now on a threshold where we can become the architects for industrial metaverse.
Wow, okay. So 10 to 20% faster, more productive, 90% capturing failure rates earlier.
Virtual times.
That's virtual times. Now, Sanjeet, tell us a little bit about Adverb, about what you founded and what you created, and how those numbers are reflecting back on you using Siemens and NVIDIA technology.
Hi. So Adverb is a robotic company. We automate warehouses and factories. We started 10 years back, and we are India's largest robotic company today, and one of the world's fastest growing robotic company. And we build all forms of robots. So we build mobile robots, cobots, quadrupeds, and now 10 days or 1 month back we launched our humanoid. So we build all forms of robots, mostly for industrial application. We don't get into home application. We do get into defense, but industrial and defense is what we do. As far as leveraging Siemens and NVIDIA technology, so if it is industrial AI, which we are in, without these two partners, it is just not possible today in the world. So we leverage, as far as Siemens is concerned, when we started in 2018, from then onwards, everything we design, whether it is mechanical, electrical, electronics, everything happens on Siemens platform. Then we have product lifecycle management team center, where we do all the versioning controls, etc. Then we have plant sim where we do the simulation. We have Technomatics, and Technomatics platform is, because we don't sell products to our customers, we sell solutions. So if we have to sell solutions, then we need to show how this product helps our customers solving their problems. So, and that we do it on Technomatics platform. So we build the model, we do all the coding as far as PLC coding is concerned, and then also the WCS and WMS, all the enterprise level software, fleet manager for robot, etc. And then with customers we sit together and do what if analysis and what happens if this happens and whatever we were talking about in the simulation world, so that when we go to the real world we see less of challenges. So and then we also use Mendis platform to support our customer, and which is where we are leveraging a lot of AI, and we can keep on talking about it, but so that the customers can use the machines the best, in the best form, and also take care of the machines. As far as NVIDIA is concerned, again, because it is robotics, it has to be, so the form factor, so the cobots or the quadruped. Now, quadruped has to walk on different terrains, and it has to walk blindly, walk on the staircases, etc. So all those, the training of the models, we do it on NVIDIA simulation platform. And then those policies, once it is trained, we take it to the robot, and whatever sim to real gap is there, we try to reduce it. So again, and we keep on trying on these platforms. So unless we have NVIDIA platform or Siemens platform for our engineers to play with, we cannot build great and reliable products for our end customers. So that is how NVIDIA and Siemens are helping.
Great, thank you, Sanjeev. Fantastic, obviously, because fastest growing robotic company. Now, Vishal, you mentioned that we want to unlock that power, so we really want to contribute to the next generation of manufacturing. How do we unlock that here in India? What are the challenges, and how can, from your point of perspective, how can we overcome them?
Yeah, so one of the most important things that Siemens and NVIDIA is doing is to really build up industrial AI operating system. India can benefit from here. You can reimagine your factories, you can have optimization taking place, you can control your supply chains. And just to give you a quick example, Sangeet, of course, spoke about that example. Even in some of the large organizations, for example, we spoke about Reliance New Energy. Reliance New Energy is basically talking about a gigafactory without even breaking the ground. They're virtually building that up, and exactly what I spoke in my previous answer is some of the benefits that they are doing. I have my colleague here, Anuj, she looks after HeroCorp. They're doing acceleration of the entire design cycle. And it's working on Siemens Xcelerator, it's working on NVIDIA infrastructure, and they're able to reduce the time from design to completion. Now think about three other things. We're going to be building 12 brand new industrial cities. 12 new cities which are going to come up. How are you going to do it? You're going to obviously need to do it on AI native operating system. We are supplementing, as you saw in some of the slides, how much energy is going to be added, especially the renewable energy. How do you build real-time virtual scenarios there? If there's electricity being produced on solar and wind, if there's a cloud cover, what happens? If you've got to automate the grid, how does that happen? Those are the possibilities that are possible. We've already seen in a city very close from here, in Pune, AIRI has actually created a lab where you can do crash analysis. You can actually do crash analysis for EV packs right here, and you can cut down on the time. They have two spokes, one in Bangalore, one in Koerte, which is taking place. What does it really mean at the end of the day? It basically means that you're looking at AI moving beyond the words to the world of atoms, being grounded there, most importantly, being connected and scalable. That's your advantage, that's advantage India.
Fantastic. Great examples there. And maybe to conclude, and Sanjeev, from your perspective, so we want to bring technology from India to the world. So you've built all the quadrupeds and the mobile robots and so on. Tell us a little bit about where do you see those industries and which markets are really important as you go from India and then conquer, of course, all the markets that are out there.
Yeah, so India is very important for us, and we started the company because we wanted to help Indian companies become more productive so that they can scale. For them, India only does not become the market. For them also, the whole world becomes the market. So that was the objective, and that is how we started. Today, 40% of our revenue comes from India, and it would continue to be in this range, 40 to 50% for the next 10 years when we scale from 10 times of what we are today. As far as, so we export all robots from India to 25 countries today. We have 100% subsidiary in US, Europe, Australia and Singapore. There is a dream that in next 10 years we reach out to more than 100 countries from India. So, and building all different kinds of robots for the world for different applications. You are talking, and Sunil sir spoke about the opportunity in green energy. So today, we are, so Reliance New Energy is a 20 gigawatt factory, and that is solar itself, and it is going to be 40 gigawatt, etc. There are several solar factories, at least 11 of them who are our customers today, in the range of 6 gigawatt and more. So, and then batteries, so, and electronics. Today 25% of Apple's mobile phone is getting manufactured in India, and they are our customers. So, not Apple, the Tata Electronics and Foxconn. So, all these sectors are growing up rapidly in India. But we also believe that because of the geopolitical thing, every country would like to have lot of these industries in their own country as well. And because we have this experience of automating in India at scale, at a price which is very, very competitive, and those values we will be able to bring to the customers across the world.
Thank you so much, Sanjeet. Thank you so much, Vishal, for joining us on stage.
You can't go. We need to ask you a question too.
Okay.
How can it be only one-way traffic? So we got Peter. We're very fortunate. He gets to see everything across the globe. The mega scale when it comes into play, which India needs to play one day. Sangeet is already going through that experience. What is one or two things that we can learn from you that India should be sensitive about? Instead of learning on the spot, if that wisdom is available, we can overcome it. So give us one or two lessons that you've seen across the world.
I think what we've seen is, as so many others, is that we've seen so many proof points of POCs, where we have shown a first pilot, but then it does not scale. And the key question is, how can we get to scale? I mean, you had great examples, Sanjeet, you had great examples there, but very often they're very specific. And what we realize is you have to do this first customer backwards, have the great idea, but then do it industry by industry. So in other words, you have to do it by electronics, you have to do it by battery manufacturing, you have to do it by automotive, and really understand what are the key use cases in there, and then really understand how they scale, and then actually build these applications. This is what I really recommend to all of you as you think about your AI in particular, is that a use case actually that can scale, otherwise it will be just yet another POC out there.
That's so good. Go beyond POCs to implementation. If our country became a shining star with less than 1% of developers from our total population, imagine each one of you now is a developer. You can speak to the computer in your respective language. You can mix your language, computer understands it, program it, go from POC to production, and make India really smart.
That's fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Great summary. Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, okay, we take a quick picture, I understand. Okay, good. Very good. Okay, thank you once again. And I hand it over to him, to our master of ceremony, and what are we doing next?
Thank you so much. I hope you're also enjoying it as much as everybody who's listening to it is enjoying it. And I'm hoping there are a lot of questions out over there in the audience, and we'll pass you the mic in case you have something. But to proceed with the Q&A, I'll invite Mr. Sunil Mathur also to join us onto the stage. If you have a question in the audience, please raise your hands. We've heard so much, so many new technologies, so many examples. So what are the boiling questions in the room? Let's hear them out. But before they say something, what excites you about India? You heard so much. Sunil just threw so many numbers. Obviously, we win the matches. But beyond that, what is that is interesting? And what's in your mind for us?
So I joked with Sunil, we had so many numbers for you today. I'm not sure how many numbers you're going to remember going out of here. And I'm not sure if I remember all the numbers that you had on there when you spoke about the India economy. But there was one thing that I kept in my mind, and these were the arrows. And these arrows, they pointed all steeply upwards. And it's very true, no matter if we talk about data center deployment, no matter renewable energy, no matter about airports, semiconductor plants and so on, all such a steep increase, you rarely find this anywhere in the world. So it's a super exciting place.
Thank you so much. It feels so nice to hear about it, I mean, as an Indian. So can we pass the mics to you? Anyone have anything specific? We have a question here. Can we get the mic there, please?
Hello, I am Chandrasekhar. So my question is to Sunil Mathur. Sunil, when you were presenting, you did mention that to have the R&D investment more, from 0.6 to 3% in growing from the India market perspective. Right? Each industry has to also invest in the R&Ds more and give this feedback to the government that investing this will result in a growth of an AI industry. So how do you give this feedback back to the governments to organize this, and how do our companies invest more in R&D so that we can also become the market leaders in AI for India?
So believe me, this is not new to the government. I don't need to give any feedback to them. They are very well aware of it. And the view is very clear. This is a role that every company has got to do. This is not a government intervention. It is a role that every company has got to take on itself, is to figure out how much can we spend or should we spend in terms of innovation. Right now, 0.6% is nothing. And if we have to stay ahead of the curve, if we want to be the manufacturing hubs of the world, if we want to have world-class infrastructure, we cannot only adapt. We have got to innovate. And I think companies that have survived hundreds of years are those companies that have been continuous innovators. And I think that is something that is no longer an option. It is actually an imperative. And that's why I think the message from the government is clear. We will support you, but you need to go out and do it.
Two questions there and one there, please. Yeah.
Hi, Kalpesh here. This question is to both of you, Sunil and Peter. We are talking about industrial AI. So, do you foresee a need of ethics part also integrated into this AI? And secondly, how will we deal with the data confidentiality? I mean, there will be a lot of data which would be acquired from various industries and platforms. So how will we ensure that the data is not leaked to other parties? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. On ethics, I think it's a little bit different in industrial AI as opposed to, let's say, general AI, where you talk about, of course, a lot of discrimination and all of these elements, harassment, everything that the AI can generate in language. In our case, it's not as much. If you think about what the AI is doing, it gives you recommendations of what you had Sanjeev talking about, what if scenarios, should I produce this, should I produce that? So therefore, you don't have that ethical question per se. What you do have, though, is the trustworthiness. So what we always argue is, how do we make AI trustworthy for an engineer to say, actually, this is really working? And so it's slightly different in that regard, because we don't have biases and all of these kind of things. But your second question is a very, very important one, and that is, of course, it's the data security element of it. And there's different answers to this. One, of course, the model is going to be trained on a large data set, which can come from all kinds of sources. It comes from us, it comes from you, it comes from synthetic data, actually. This is where also we work with NVIDIA quite a bit to create, of course, all the synthetically generated simulations and pictures and images and everything in order to train the AI. But once these models are available, they are generalizable, and so therefore we don't see there too much of a specific risk for the individual company. It's getting interesting, though, once we deploy that industrial AI, very often you're going to have fine-tuning based on racks and everything. And this is where we need to make sure when it's deployed, of course, it cannot be hacked. So as you go out there, you're going to see an entire section with regards to cybersecurity, and where we have the usual elements of course, the zero trust and everything in order to safeguard the data, to your very point. Yeah, so very good question. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question there. Can we get the mic, please?
Hi, good morning. This is Tushar from Innomotics India. Firstly, thanks Mr. Mathur, Mr. Koerte for a very, very fascinating session. Having worked in this field for the last 10 years, we moved from digitization to the digitalization. There is always a confluence of thoughts that the AI or the industrial AI should be isolated or insulated from the process of the domain know-how. As per your understanding of the experience what Siemens has, how far the AI should be knowing the domain know-how or the process know-how of any manufacturing cycle to be successful in the LLM side of it?
Yeah, I'd say domain know-how is quintessential for making the AI actually useful. Otherwise, this will not work. I give you an example where a training sample where today we can do predictions on doors, failure of a passenger train. And we can predict that based on traditional AI, but also on Gen AI in order to make this work. And that's domain know-how. You need to understand that the whole day the doors of a train go open and shut, so that you have to really focus on the key parts that are going to fail. That's on a train, but the same is true for factories. You need to understand which parts of the machine is going to break down, what kind of material flow that is there. So you need to understand the domain specifically. So you need to train that to the AI, so you cannot separate it at all. What I think, though, what's important is that you can fine-tune, this is for the earlier question, that can fine-tune that AI to your very specific manufacturing process, because as I said earlier, every industry is slightly different, every manufacturing site is slightly different, you probably know that, and so therefore it has to be adapted and fine-tuned to get to the level of accuracy that I mentioned. Last point, there's always going to be some human in the loop. In a way, I think for the foreseeable future, I know we all talk a lot about agentic, but even in the agentic space, eventually there's some human in the loops, because we are not there yet in the completely autonomous systems, but we are certainly getting closer and closer. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up question? Okay, thank you. I know, okay, this will be the last, because we need to move to the next segment. Hello?
Hi. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm Shruti from Carnegie India, which is a policy research organization. I just have a very brief question. I think throughout both of your presentations, we spoke about industrial AI and automation. I just wanted to know if either of you have a view on the future of work, and do you anticipate the kind of job displacement that we're hearing about, or do we think there will be job creation in ways that we've not thought of? Thank you.
So that's a very important question. Thanks for raising that. Let's put this into perspective. When we talk, and you heard, when we talk about the government's vision of increasing the share of manufacturing from 15 to 25%, we're talking about close to $2 trillion of capex coming in. Now, that means a whole lot of additional jobs. Even if those jobs are 50% less because of AI, you're basically doubling your workforce, if not tripling your workforce from what it is right now. So I think, yes, there will be an impact, but the nature of the jobs will change, part one, and with the onslaught of industrial AI, productivity increases, manufacturing will increase, and for us in India, that's a huge opportunity for jobs. I'm looking at roughly at least doubling the workforce if we are able to get from 15 to 25% of GDP. At least, assuming that 40 to 50% could be rationalized due to industrial AI.
And maybe just one quick sentence to add on this one is, it's augmentation. And so the idea is repetitive tasks are being replaced by automation, but in this case of course by AI, but you heard that answer before. And then really is get to the human nature that is about creativity, problem solving, empathy, communication, all of these elements that you can free up. And so we believe there is a huge opportunity to become more productive in that regard. But yes, there will be definitely some changes with regards to training and of course the level of skills that are required going forward in the Indian workforce.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you so much, Peter and Mr. Mathur, for joining me onto the stage. We'll move forward with the agenda now.
No.
We'll take it downstairs.